should we add weight to the bar or whatever exercise we are performing in order to uh, see increased changes in our muscle mass? So, this is a very common question that gets asked, whether to add weights in order to sustainably keep on adding muscle basically and not run into a plateau. And there are a lot of mixed feelings about this question, uh, even by the same people who kind of initially preached using weights as a benchmark, a yardstick of gauging your muscle mass. And I'll say that it is quite a reliable tool, except uh, it's not very easy to continuously add weights, right? Because there are different tools, there are different exercises. For some exercises, it's much easier to add weights. For some, the weights must be added in very small increments. For example, let's say shoulder press. If you're lucky, you might add like uh, 1 or 2 kgs in 2 weeks if you're a beginner, and if you are sufficiently advanced, it's absolutely a test of your patience. Uh, and then there's other exercises where you kind of are limited by the implements that are at your disposal. For example, dumbbells, they go up in 5 kg or uh, 10 pound increments, so there isn't much of an option there. But the point here is that there are many other variables at your disposal that can be used to kind of gauge your overall volume. So keep in mind that ultimately adding more weight is adding more total volume to your workouts. So if you are, let's say, if we were to measure uh, the volume of one set, let's say you have used 10 kg dumbbells or 22-pound dumbbells to do shoulder presses, right? And you kind of add 5 pounds on top of that. Effectively, you do that for 10 reps, you're effectively adding 50 pounds worth of volume in that specific set. Um, so you have effectively added 50 pounds of volume, and that is your progressive overload, right? And so this increment in volume can be achieved through a few other ways. For example, adding more reps in the single set. So converting your 10 RMs, 10 rep maxes to 12 RMs. So you just add two more repetitions. Of course, um, if it's more number of sets, then there's a bit of wiggle room here and there. Of course, these are general guidelines, so if you add a few reps to your working sets, that would also contribute to uh, increment your total work volume. And then there's a final one that I can think of the top of my head, and that is throwing in extra sets. So let's say you have plateaued in 3 sets of a certain exercise, say dumbbell shoulder press, and you don't necessarily want to add more weights, or maybe the next jump is significantly higher. Um, so for smaller lifters, or for women, generally they tend to stall in the 10 to 15 pound range, and then the next jump is significantly higher, like 25 to 30% more, and that is like an absolute nightmare for them. And so an interesting way would be just to add more sets. So instead of doing 3 sets, you throw in an extra set, so 4 sets of the same exercise, and then the following week maybe five. Of course, this isn't sustainable. It is this isn't the most time efficient way of adding volume, but then it is definitely a tool you want to keep in your toolbox. Uh, and again, there is no one best way um, to progressively overload your muscle. Sometimes intensity works, sometimes volume works better, and then for different exercises, it's very different. Um, and then there's genetic differences. Uh, some people are naturally inclined towards intensity. They seem to kind of get more mental edge through lifting heavier weights. And unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't really encourage people to stop doing what's working for them, right? And so the key takeaway here is that volume is the ultimate factor that drives growth. Of course, there are limitations to this discussion. If I take um, an absolutely insignificant amount of weight and rep it for hundreds and hundreds of repetitions, hoping to achieve the same volume um, as a 10 rep or 12 rep set, that is completely different discussion. So the point here is that if between 8 to uh, 15 reps, or even lower than that, from 5 to 15 reps, um, nuance is a very important consideration when it comes to deciding whether certain workout routines are going to work out for you.